Welcome to Blue Talks.
My name is Davis Hawn, and I am an international service dog advocate, author, and speaker. And it is absolutely great to be at UCLA, an institution of higher learning, because I so value education. You can't go wrong if you get an education. It's valuable, even for a dog. So I want to tell you that a dog saved my life, not once, but twice. I did a Blue Talk at MIT. If you find it on the internet, or you go to www.boostertheservicedog.com, you can read about how my life was changed from suicidal to a passion. But that was a talk for another day. And I want to tell you, it took me 10 years, and I traveled the world with a dog, and I finally wrote a book, and it's entitled My Booster. You will see stories there that just defy belief. I look back at my own life and I'm like, did that really happen? It was absolutely amazing. And it's a compilation of inspiring, love-filled memories. Some were magical and some were tragic. My booster and I traveled around the world, and we introduced the service dog concept around the world. And we helped get laws passed for the disabled. What good is a guide dog if you can't go into a venue with the dog, right? If you leave it outside, maybe a street dog attacks it or somebody steals it and uses it for bait in a dog fight, then the dog becomes a hindrance and a burden rather than helpful. So do you ever wonder what it's like to be partnered with a service dog or a guide dog? Probably not. But I got to tell you, it is challenging, and public access is often a battle. And emotions rise and you get angry. What do you mean I can't come in? The minute you do that, you've lost the battle. You become a danger, and they have all the right in the world to eject you from the premises. Veterans can go from 0 to 180 right away. When they're partnered with the service dog, remember, they're hypervigilant and they get emotional. It defeats the purpose of having that dog to help them overcome their PTSD. Now, my booster, my original service dog, he passed the CGC, Canine Good Citizen test, TDI, Therapy Dogs International. He had an education. I remember the first time I went into a public venue, Booster had his education. We walked into a Walmart. I went to get a battery for my watch, the jewelry counter. There were 3 children there. He's got a dog! I've got us a dog! You would have thought Freddy Krueger was loose on meth. And did I get angry? Did I get angry? No, I did not. I walked out of that store with my tail tucked between my legs. I got home. And I was bummed because I let myself down and I let my dog down. And that hurt. That absolutely hurt. So it took me years, but I morphed anger into civility, using humor and serenity, and education to achieve an end, public access, and teaching people in other countries about the service dog concept. But I needed an education. My dog had one. So I ended up at age 52 returning to university in California, right? I went to Bergin University of Canine Studies. It was founded by Dr. Benita Bergin, who founded the service dog concept. Rather than retire in her 60s and get a motorhome and do what you're supposed to do, she took on the US government, founded a college, and got it fully accredited. How amazing. People come from all over the world to teach and learn about dogs. But I was ridiculed, including by my family. You spent how much to get a degree in Dog 101? Really? Well, let me tell you, there's my degree, and I'm very proud of it. I want to digress for a second. Warren Buffett gave a lecture. I'm going to read this one to you. At the University of Florida School of Business, and he spoke about living a happy life. He said the way to do it is to play out the game and do something you enjoy all your life. Be associated with people you like. I only work with people I like. If I could make $100 million with a guy who causes my stomach to churn? I'd say no. He said, your overall happiness in life really boils down to 4 very simple words. Do what you love. How cool is that, right? So that Bergin degree took me all over the world. I went to communist Cuba and ended up on live television under Fidel Castro. I went to Mexico, Canada, Costa Rica, the Bahamas, Thailand, Korea, and more. The net result, I developed a passion. I went from once suicidal in my life to having a passion. And it was because of the dog. And when he saved my life, I made him a promise. I told him I would share him with the world every time I traveled. Today, I'm at UCLA. Why? Because I'm fulfilling the promise to my dog, my booster. So I want to share some stories. I knew a man, Ed Ames. He started an organization, the International Association of Assistance Dog Partners. Ed was blind. He lived in Manhattan, New York. He would have to pretend to be staring through a storefront window and have a passerby hail a taxi. The passerby would open the taxi door and Ed would run and jump in that taxi. Get that damn dog out of my taxi. One time, the taxi driver actually grabbed him by his ankles and pulled him out of the taxi cab. How disgusting is that, right? Now, I got to tell you, my previous Walmart experience was bad. But I went into a little town of Flippin, Arkansas. It was Halloween. All the employees were dressed in costume. I walked in with my dog, Booster. Young man came running up to save the day. Mister, we don't allow dogs in the store. Excuse me, son, he's a service dog. Is he really a service dog? Now, I raised my voice just loud enough to everybody would look at me, but not to be menacing. Excuse me, yes, he's really a service dog, but you're not really Zorro. So if you would please get out of my way and let me shop. Well, at that point, everybody in the store is looking at me. The store manager waddles over, security guard comes over here, and I looked at the manager. I said, sir, you see that signage on the front of your store, service animal welcome? I think that's the result of a federal lawsuit. Below that, if problems, you got a dedicated 800 number. I think that was another lawsuit. Young man, am I upset or angry with you? Not at all. But Mr. Manager, you failed to train your employee properly. And I think that was even in one of the settlements. Am I angry at him? No, but I think you owe me an apology, and you owe this young man an apology. The only thing I'm guilty of is using a durable piece of medical equipment called a service dog. He feigned an apology. People kind of chuckled. But the takeaway is everybody in that store in that vicinity got an education that day. That was the powerful message. I tell you, I ended up traveling and took cruises with my booster. Went on a cruise one time and I bought a ticket to the thermal suite. Beautiful, 30-person jacuzzi, back of the boat. You're seeing the water, right? Booster was with me. He was at 30 feet away next to the wall. And I'm in this jacuzzi. I had a great time. Ceramic chaise lounges, heated. It was wonderful. Got to my room and the phone rang. And I picked up the phone. Hello, Mr. Hawn, would you please come see me in the office? So I went to the officers. He said, Mr. Hawn, we cannot allow you to have the dog in the thermal suite. And I said, well, why is that? Well, we're kind of worried about sanitary conditions and the dog hair flying. Well, at this point, I went. Made it. And the point being was his head started bouncing like a dog's head on a spring on the dashboard of a car. And he probably thought I was on drugs and they hit their mark. But at that point, I looked at him seriously. I said, sir, I was sitting in your jacuzzi. I'm surrounded by hair. My dog is 30 feet away. Some of those hairs were brown, some were black, some were red, some were blonde. Some might have come from the stomach, some might have come from the back. Some might have come from where Anthony Bourdain would have said, parts unknown. And he said, well, sir, we have to follow the mandates. All righty, from the home office. So I got on the ship's computer, contacted the home office in Miami. Well, it's up to the officer's discretion, like the pilot of a plane. Now I'm pissed. Now we're playing good cop, bad cop. I marched back into that guy's office, And I said, so I'm going to be polite here. Somebody's not telling me the truth. And I'm an advocate, and I'm going to find out about this. The next day, the phone rang in the room. Mr. Hawn, could you and Booster please come to my office? Not you and your dog. He knew my dog's name, Booster. So I walk in, I sit down, Mr. Hawn, look, we refunded the fee to the thermal suite, but we're going to let you use that suite for the rest of the cruise for free. We've put a $100 gift certificate on your account. We're inviting you and Booster to join us in the theater tonight to see Circus of Soleil. I said, great. Now I have another favor to ask. He said, well, what is that? I said, sir, you've just given me a $100 bill. And I've learned in life what goes around comes around. I'd like to take that $100 and cut it in half and give it to 2 of your employees. There was a man on the top deck who brought my dog a bowl of water, and I never asked him for it. He did it out of the kindness of his heart. The young man that makes my room, he pets my dog on the head every time he comes in. He never complains. Great people, kind people. I'd like to take the $100 you gave me, cut it in half, and I've got 2 $50 bills in my cabinet. I'd like to give them each a $50. You think you could get them in your office maybe tomorrow? He said, I think that can be arranged. The next day I walk into the office, those 2 guys are there. They don't know if they're going to get thrown overboard or be fired. I looked at them and commended them in front of their boss. And I gave them each their $50. And it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. So here you see the officer, those 2 gentlemen, and the dog, right? There we are, Circus du Soleil on the ship. Point is, with an education and a passion and maintaining your composure, you can go from here to here and accomplish a lot in life. Now, whenever you travel with a service dog on a ship, you get a form to fill out. Does the dog know where to urinate? Has he got training? Send me all his papers. And I commend them for that. But once in a while, I would have fun with it. So I sent the cruise line a photo of my dog, Booster, urinating in his box as he was trained to do with a $50,000 education, right? And I said, if you're going to be stopping on the island of St. Lucia, where I've stopped before, you might want to send that same form to the humans who might get on your ship, because you'll see a huge sign, no urination and no urinating in public. We turn the corner, another building. Notice, do not piss here. Pardon me, that's not my vernacular. That's the official government wording on the side of the building. So maybe you need them to fill out the same form that you asked of my dog, right? Education is powerful, and it can be fun, and you can use it to make a point. Years later, I bought a timeshare in the Bahamas. They didn't allow dogs, but they allowed me to have my service dog. We were asked to demonstrate the dog's skills in a church in Nassau. I brought Booster in. He turned on the light switch, took off my socks, got my shoes, opened the fridge, and the preacher turned to me and asked me to say some words. At that time, I wasn't good at public speaking, and I kind of resented it. But I stood up and I looked out, and the 2 front rows were all disabled, wheelchairs, missing a limb, maybe blind, but they were afraid of the dog. Their eyes were as big as saucers, and something came over me, and it was powerful. I said, you know, I see fear in this room. You're afraid of this 100-pound dog. And you know what? I get it. A 100-pound dog can do a lot of damage. But I've read in your newspaper this morning, you've had almost 100 murders in Nassau this year. Not one was committed by a dog. Perhaps you have more to fear from the person seated beside you this morning in God's house than the dog in front, who will work the rest of his life for free to help you lead a better life. With that, the preacher changed his whole planned sermon for the day and talked about how God put animals in people's lives. Maybe a year or 2 later, I returned to the island and I wanted to get on the little tour bus. So I took Booster, and the man said, you can't get on this bus. Why? Well, we're afraid he might bite somebody, man, and we don't want to lose our insurance. Hey, all these people are at my timeshare. They've been playing with my dog all week long. No, man. Well, listen, may I talk to the owner of the company? Sure, man. And they called him. And I said, sir, let me explain to you. I'm a minority. I'm disabled. They've got post-traumatic. There's times my leg doesn't work. If you're blind, the dog is your eyes. If you can't walk, he's your legs. He's part of your body. I can't go without the dog. And I want to share with you something, sir, that in my country of the U.S., we have a terrible civil rights record. We made people, because of something as foolish as the pigmentation color of their skin right in the back of a bus. Disgusting. Do you know who Rosa Parks was? Of course, Mon, everybody knows Rosa. Well, what we did for Rosa was wrong because we made her ride in the bus, back of the bus, because of the fact she was a minority due to the color of her skin. That was horrible. But sir, what you've just done to me today is worse than what we did in my country in the day, because you've just kicked the minority off the bus altogether. And you know what? You're in the tourism business, and I know you don't have a discriminatory bone in your body, sir. And this is a new concept in the Bahamas, and I get it. And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking time out of your busy business day to listen to what I have to say. He said, no problem, man. The following year, I returned to Freeport, to my island seas, and I was with two blind ladies with their guide dogs. And they wanted to go in the tour bus and to listen to the narration, though they couldn't see. And we got to the tour bus, and the man said, get on. I said, oh no, in deference to the owner, please call him out of respect. And they called him, put him on the phone with me. You know what that man said? You want to know what he said? You're welcome on the bus, man. You see, nobody used a racial slur. Nobody pulled a knife. Nobody used a gun. It was education begets education. Picasso may have painted beautiful paintings, but that moment was one of the most beautiful paintings that I've ever encountered in my life. It was so meaningful. Education, coupled with a passion, with a well-trained service dog, it was just so cool to know that all of the time I spent getting an education and traveling the world, all the suffering I'd done prior to a dog coming into my life, paid off in such a nice, positive manner. It was so special. Well, I got to tell you, I had to get from Nassau to Freeport. Bahamas Air didn't fly service dogs. Well, I got into the waiting area. They called the flight. I presented my boarding pass. My dog was kind of tucked away. Now, people are all lined up, kind of blocking the view. I ran and got my dog, went down again, and got in the plane and sat down in the seat with my dog. And I'm not kidding you. The pilot left the cockpit, came up to me and said, sir, we don't fly dogs in cabin. Captain, you would kick a blind man off your plane with a guide dog? Really? Well, sir, you're not blind. You're absolutely correct. But I do have a really bad case of PTSD, and there's times my leg doesn't work. He said, sir, I will fly you, but please send me some documentation so when my superiors question me, I can tell them why I flew you today. Captain, you have my word. I sent him an email. I got an email back. Thank you, Mr. Hawn, for doing what you said you would do. No, Captain, thank you for flying me that day. And I want you to know, it was at the Bahamas National Council of Disability. I worked with Sheila Colmer, the president. Even the Embassy of the United States was there. Shortly thereafter, 3/4 of a newspaper story, Bahamas Air eases travel policy curve on animals who help people with disabilities. Traveler with post-traumatic stress allowed to take dog on board. They amended their operations manual at that moment to allow service dogs from then on all their flights. How cool is that? Education, civility, and a wonderfully trained dog, right? Later, I had to get into communist Cuba. We didn't fly there. Bahamas Air did. And they got me in because of my experience with my dog. How cool was that, right? Well, in the future, after we got a national law passed, which they said they got more exposure with my dog, media attention, than they had in the preceding 30 years, I returned. And I needed to take a taxi home from the port, and the taxi driver wouldn't let the dog in the taxi. So I walk into the police box, the police station in Freeport. The cop looks at me with the dog. Get the dog out. Excuse me, officer, he's a service dog. The other cop chimes in. Did you hear what he said? He said, get the dog out. The third one said, you better do what he says. I walked out. I called Sheila Colmer, president of the Disability Council. Sheila, you won't believe what just happened. They just kicked me out. She called the assistant commissioner of police for the whole island. Coincidentally, they had a conference 3 days later on the island. All the brown suits, the chief of police were there, and they cordially invited me to attend. I walked into that conference, demonstrated my dog's skills, and I looked at them all, and I said, you know, who do you turn to when you walk into a police station and not one, not two, but three police officers verbally accost you, kind of threatening, who do you turn to when that happens and in violation of your national law? Am I angry? And I said it just like that. No, not at all. You know what? Y'all were gracious enough to invite me to your conference this morning. I spent years of my life obtaining a master's degree in dog, Canine Life Sciences, right? And I commend you for getting a national disability law passed. Lower the curb, widen the bathroom doors, allow a blind man into a hotel room with his guide dog. I'm so proud of you guys. Well, we have a question, sir. What's that? Would you join us on the courthouse steps? So we would like you and your friends and your dogs to join us. There's the photo, all the chief of police with the dogs. Nobody used a dirty word. Nobody pulled a gun. Nobody used a knife. That is the power of education and being calm. I want to share another one. If you remember the Alamo, right? I had a friend on a liver transplant list. He needed a liver. He needed somebody to be a caretaker. He was a solo in life. I agreed to do it. We went to the VA in Houston, Texas. We stayed in Fisher House on property for the veterans' families. There was a brochure in the office with a veteran in a wheelchair with a service dog. We entered the room and I get a phone call. There a dog in that room? Yes, ma'am, there is. That dog got to go. No, ma'am, that dog don't got to go. Well, does he have his papers? Well, he won his GED, his high school diploma, his college diploma, his PhD. I think he's working on his PhD. She hung up the phone, rightfully so, maybe. We go into the hospital. There were some foreign doctors, I think maybe that didn't like dogs. But anyway, my friend came out of an MRI tube later, and the nurse said, you have an appointment with the chief of staff. I said, oh, it's protocol, right? Chief of staff, white robe, comes out. Sir, we're here to talk about the dog. Why do you have the dog? Well, look, I've got horrible PTSD, times I can't walk, and the dog helps me. And I want to tell you, you're probably aware, but every hour of every day a veteran is committing suicide. More veterans die from suicide than battle. At Bergin University, they started a program, Paws for Purple Hearts. They're having veterans with PTSD train service dogs for veterans with TBIs, traumatic brain injuries. By doing so, the suicide rate plummets. Doc, we're on the same page. But if you get your vets in body bags, there's not a hell of a lot you can do for them, right? Well, you know, I had to ask, hey, I got it. They're fake service dogs. You're doing your job, and I commend you for that. We stopped by the therapy department on the way out. I said, can we do a therapy dog visit? My dog's got his TDI. Well, we have people that do that. If we're interested, we'll call you. So she blew me off. 4:45, the phone rings. Mr. Hawn, could you and your dog Booster come at lunchtime tomorrow to meet some of our therapists and staff? I said, oh, I'd be delighted, but how did you know my dog's name? Well, it's all over the internet. Wait a minute, you credentialed me? She said, you don't think I'm going to have somebody walk off the street and tie up my doctor's times, do you? How cool is that? We had a wonderful visit. Once again, it went from get the dog out of here to can you come talk to our doctors and staff? How beautiful is that? Years later, a few years ago, here's your veteran. Look, I couldn't talk to the guy in a public park. He wasn't interested, right? But my dog connected on the lips of a war veteran. That is pretty powerful for me. We were invited to lecture at a disability conference in Tepic, Mexico. DEEF is a governmental organization to help the disabled. I went, and it was amazing. I want to share two quick stories. Here's the conference. Hundreds of people came to listen, and I had my dog bring a basket of flowers to the mayor of the city, who introduced me at the conference as the TV cameras rolled. Really, really special, guys. I got to tell you that. Those are the DEEF employees. And I wanted to show them how difficult public access is. So I invited them out to lunch one afternoon. We went to an upscale restaurant. No mascotas permitted. No pets permitted. Well, good, because he's not a pet. He's a service dog. And I marched right in and sat down. Dog went under the table. The manager came over and said, well, sir, we're worried about hair. Mr. Manager, I want to say something to you. When we were seated at your table, the young man came up and he grabbed the forks, the tines, the part that goes in your mouth. And you know, Mr. Manager, he grabbed that fork with no plastic gloves and he set the end of the fork that was picked up by the hand that scratches the ass was expected to go into the mouth, and you're worried about a dog's hair? Well, at that point, he said, well, we never had a service dog before. I said, you know, I get it. It became a great education, once again, from here to here. I took the employees out to dinner the following night. They had a chain across the restaurant door to control seating. The chain came down. The employees went in and the chain went up. You can't bring that dog in. I said, you know, I'm disabled. He helps me in my life. Nope, can't do it. All right. In coat and tie, I sat down in the dirty street with the cockroaches, and I told the employees, enjoy your dinner. You guys, please serve my sushi here. I'll eat it, and maybe I can share it with the cockroaches. You know what happened? You know what happened? The chain came down. Come on in, sir. And the dog went under the table, and we enjoyed a great meal. So I've got to tell you that that dog developed incredible passion. And within education and using the brain that God gave you, everything in life is possible. That dog saved my life and changed my life and opened up opportunities around the world. And he taught me so much. And at this point, if we were in Mexico, I'd say ciao. But since we're in the US, I'll say Labrador Retriever. And thank you guys for listening. Get a copy of the book, My Booster. It's got all those stories and a heck of a lot more. Quite incredible. And look, thanks guys for coming.